All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tyler Carson, and I'm the president of Carson International. I want to welcome and thank our partners and clients for joining us today for the Life After NAFTA webinar. This is a very popular presentation, as I believe we have nearly 300 attendees calling in from all over North America, and I'm just going to address a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. I know many of you have a busy schedule, so a recording will be sent out after the presentation so you can review everything we discussed and share the information with your team. Our goal with this webinar is to keep it under 30 minutes so that it is easily digestible and referenced, can be referenced at your convenience. You should have all have received a Carson CUSMA USMCA form, so please have that open and reference it throughout the presentation as we're going to walk you through that document. All right, so at this time, I'd just like to thank everybody for joining us and remind everybody that we are a full service logistics company offering best-in-class international freight, trade advisory, e-commerce, and distribution services. If you have any questions at all about how can we assist you with these services, please don't hesitate to get in touch with myself, Dave, or your Carson representative. Carson is, of course, at its core, a customs broker serving the import and export markets in Canada and the United States for well over 50 years. We take pride in our compliance and entry filing service, and the CUSMA USMCA trade agreement will be a key feature for cross-border trade for the next decade or more. And as you can see, there I am, Tyler Carson, president of Carson International. And many of you who should know and work with Dave Pentland will be handling most of the heavy lifting on the call today. Okay. Dave, you want to move to the next slide? Great. We're going to be addressing a number of key issues today, but most importantly, it's that date that we're all looking at. July 1st, 2020. That's the implementation. That's the go forward date. We definitely understand how daunting this might seem to get all your trade documents in order, but I just want to reassure everybody, Carson will be there every step of the way to guide you towards the deadline and beyond. And of course, we do have a disclaimer here. Today's goal is really to educate you about the new NAFTA agreement and does not constitute any legal advice. We've actually created a new email specifically for CUSMA requests, CUSMA@carson.ca. Please send all your questions there. And if you need some detailed information or analysis, let us know and we'll walk you through those next steps. And at this time, I want to hand you off to the very capable hands of Dave Pentland, who many of you will work with and know personally. Dave has been a leader with Carson for nearly 35 years and brings an incredible amount of US and Canadian compliance knowledge. Dave, off to you. Tell us all about the new CUSMA USMCA TMEC agreement. Take care.
Great, thanks Tyler, and welcome everybody. So I'm going to try and really keep this into 30 minutes and dispel a lot of the fear that you've got going into the new agreement. And we'll, so the agenda, we're going to look through expectations, what you expect from getting from this webinar today, a brief introduction about NAFTA and certainly under the new CUSMA USMCA agreement, major components of the agreement. Then we'll look at some of the major changes from NAFTA. A large part of the today's presentation will look at the actual certification under the new agreement. For people that would like to dig a little deeper into it, we'll give you some reference tools and active sites you can visit. And then starting to wrap up, we'll talk about where do you start and what do you do now. And then there'll be a forum for you to submit questions. And being a 30-minute webinar, we don't have the ability to actually have a chat session open. So you'll have the ability to send in your specific questions. So expectations, this is what you'll not get from this presentation. So in 30 minutes, there's no way that I can stress on how to become an expert on CUSMA or USMCA. You will also not know everything about your specific products. So it'll be up to you to take a look under the your specific products, whether you're an importer or an exporter, and ensure that there has been no distinct changes and that your goods that qualified in the past will actually qualify in the future. Also, you'll not get all the details on the agreement. We'll just certainly highlight what is most pertinent. And so expectations, what you will get from this presentation is that you'll find out the basics of the new agreement, find out about the major changes, and then, as I said, we're going to spend some time understanding the new certification process, Then also when to ask questions about your specific products, and wrapping up, you'll get a depository to answer questions specific to Carson. And then you should have all obtained a Carson certification form, which you can use for the CUSMA, USMCA, or TMAX. So, brief introduction. NAFTA has been in place since 1994, relatively unchanged. It's been a trade agreement that has benefited Mexico, the United States, and Canada. And as of July 1st, the new agreement is taking place. And that's the one thing is that they haven't been able to do, the three countries, has been able to discertain an exact what they call the agreement. So for our American friends, they call it the U.S. Mexico Canada Agreement. In Canada, we call it the Canada U.S. Mexico Agreement. And in Mexico, they call it the Tratado entre Mexico Estados Unidos y Canada Agreement. For simplicity's sake, I'm just going to call it the agreement, and we'll go from there. The reason we're here today is that the NAFTA revision really stemmed from the Trump 2016 election campaign, and his exact words were to tear up NAFTA. So because of this, the fear being that NAFTA is somehow a bad word, or a word that was not the parties could not use going forward. And it's unfortunate because it still in fact is NAFTA, but we're just going to call it the agreement. A big other item is that there is no transition period. So this is a little undaunting because July 1st is a date, it's fixed, and it's going to take place. So whether you're an importer, an exporter, or a manufacturer, you need to take steps to get ready because we're only 5.5 weeks away from the start date. So the major components of the agreement, these are the distinct sections within the agreement. The big part is intellectual property, which was not addressed really in NAFTA, and under the agreement, there's been some issues where they've have some additions to pharmaceutical licensing and things like that. Also, digital trade has been enhanced and talked about. And what we're going to focus on is trading goods, and we're going to take a look at de minimis. We're not going to look at financial services or environment. So the next 25 minutes, we're going to take a look at trading goods and de minimis. So major changes from NAFTA. So NAFTA, since it's been around for pretty close to 26 years, these certificates will still be required up until June 30th, 2020. And you must retain these certificates for 6 years. That's a big, so you definitely do not want to be throwing away your NAFTA certificates. They'll be required. And certainly they'll still be conducting audits under the old NAFTA rules of origin on any goods that have imported or exported up until June 30th of 2020. Now, on audits and claims under NAFTA, you must retain them for 6 years, and claims can only be done for 1 year from date of import, which is quite important. So if you have any claims under NAFTA, you have a 1-year time limit. De minimis under NAFTA was $20 for duty and sales tax into Canada, $800 US. And under NAFTA, the present rules of origin, like I said, will apply up until June 30th. Under the new agreement, NAFTA certificates, there is no actual NAFTA certificate. Now, the parties decided that there is a certification process. However, they have not mandated a certificate. But as of July 1st, you will be required to have a certification and we'll go into what the certification entails in the next few slides. Under audits and claims, big change for Canadians is that Canada has changed the process and that you'll be entitled to claim for 4 years from date of import into Canada. The United States is sticking to a 1-year claim for any claims from 1 year from date of import. Under the new agreement, de minimis into the United States does not change. However, for Canada, they're increasing the de minimis on duty and sales tax up to $40 from participating countries, being Mexico and the United States, into Canada, and $150 on duty only into Canada. Taxes, GST, and applicable provincial taxes would still be owing. Rules of origin. Approximately 95% of the rules of origin remain the same, but it's beholden upon the importers and the exporters to ensure that they look at their specific rules of origin and ensure that there has been no changes that affect their products either being imported or exported. The most affected products under the new agreement are auto sector. There's a certain language on sets, and a few rules of origin have changed, and also as well as agriculture. So certification, NAFTA rules still in effect till June 30th. Nothing changes. There is a NAFTA certificate, and this is something that is very important, that you ensure that these NAFTA certificates are just not thrown away. You must keep them. And presently under NAFTA, only the exporter and or manufacturer can complete a NAFTA certificate, and proof of origin remains under the NAFTA certificate. Now CUSMA, you must satisfy the CUSMA rules of origin. And like I said, many goods have no changes to the rule of origin. And pre-printed forms can be used if, by human nature, most people would rather fill in boxes on a form than actually are mandated to put specific information on a piece of paper. So at Carson, we've actually produced our own certificate, which you all have a copy of, and it can be used. If you don't want to use this, certainly if you put the same information on a piece of paper, if you'd like to put on your letterhead, you're free to do that as well. One big change under CUSMA is also electronic signatures are now accepted by all three countries. So certifying the goods, there are rules of origin, and you need to consult the rules of origin to ensure that your products specifically qualify. Most rules of origin on the agreement or certifications, you'll see Annex 4B. 4B is really the one that will be used most of the time. It identifies that the goods' specific rules of origin are applicable, and it's the one that probably 95% of the time we see as brokers on certificates. You will also be able to use past qualifying information on your goods if your rules of origin have not changed. Now, certifying goods, just like under NAFTA, you'll have to be required at time of release of goods. It's mandated that the importer and or their broker must be have the certification at time of release. Big changes certainly coming into Canada is that anything under $3,300 Canadian does not require a certification at time of release. Another big change is the certification process still includes the exporter, the manufacturer, and now they've actually put language in there saying the importer can actually process or certify the certification. So let's take a look at the example that we sent you out as certification. So I'm going to run through these sections. So like I said, certification has no prescribed format under CUSMA. It only requires a set of minimum data elements that indicates that the goods is an originating good. And so the main portions of that are identifying the address of the certifier, identifying who the exporter is, the producer, the importer, description of goods, the rule of origin, if this is a single certification or if it's a blanket certification, and then who is actually authorized this certification. And whoever is authorizing this certification is a big part, and it's the one that if customs is going back to question the certification, they will be reaching out to the person that signed this. So this is something that I stress, that whoever within your company knows the most about your products and how they qualify should be signing this. Please don't get the president or CEO to sign it because they're the top of the food chain. Because understand that both customs agencies, both in the United States, Canada, and Mexico, will reach out to that person. And the standard reply from presidents and CEO is, I sign things all day long, so people, put it under my nose, I signed it. So certification example. So let's look at this example. And so as I said, the exporter, producer, or importer. So a word of caution is if you're in Canada and you're buying goods from the United States and your product arrives at the border, and you decide that as an importer, since legally you're allowed to complete the certification, I would say a word of caution is I would not complete a certification if you are not totally comfortable in the fact that you understand that these goods qualify and how they qualify, and that you can actually produce audit information for customs. Just because you're allowed to doesn't mean that you actually should. So on box one, who is the certifier? So in this case, we've got a Mr. Sam Smith. He happens to be the customs manager at ABC Cutlery. He's located in Portland, Oregon. We've got his zip code, we've got his phone number, and we've got an email address, which is, so in this case, the certifier is also the same as the exporter in box two. So the data elements are the same. This information is required, but if it's the same, you just put same as in box one. So the producer, in this case, we're making it very simple that the certifier, the exporter, and the producer are all the same company. You would just state that as the same data elements. Now, if there are multiple producers, or if the company wishes the manufacturer to be kept confidential, just like the NAFTA certificates, you're totally able to use available to customs upon request by the importing authorities. That can go into this box there, and then if customs wants to reach out, they'll certainly reach out to the certifier and ask them who the actual manufacturer was. And then again, the address of the producer is the same place of production of the goods, so, which in this case is Portland, Oregon. So the importer, in box 4, you need the address of the importer. It shall be the territory, in this case, it was Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. So in this case, it was the XYZ company. They're based in Vancouver, has their postal code and their phone number and everything's in order. This is the, if there is a set importer that this is coming into. If not, customs will also accept various. If you have a large export in the United States shipping to various companies in Canada, they'll actually accept various, as long as the invoice that it attached to makes reference to the same goods on the certification. So into box 5. So in box 5, we get into the meat of the certification. Just like it was under NAFTA, you need the description of the goods, and the description of the goods needs to be sufficient so you can identify which goods are being certified. SKU numbers are not acceptable. You need a description that customs can ascertain is the same description that is identifying that the invoice that's attached to it, that these goods are qualifying. So if the certification of the origin covers a single shipment and it's indicated single shipment, customs authorities would like the invoice number on this certification. If this is a blanket certification, then certainly the invoice number is not required. So in this case, these are plastic cookware, and this company is obviously looked up the rules of origin under 392410, and they've determined that this plastic cookware, and they have the 6-digit HS code number, and we'll So under box 6, you're talking about origin criteria. So a little different with certification and origin criteria under the new agreement is all the goods qualify under Article 4.2. So Article 4.2 will always be there, and then it must fall into one of the categories. And certainly there's not enough time to look at all the specific categories, but again, the only possible answers can be A, B, C, D1, D2, or D3. And like I said previously, 4.2B will be on 95% of the certifications that you see, because those are goods that qualify on the rules of origin, that they've been made into a qualifying good on goods from other headings and specific rules of origin. So in this case, the rule of origin is specific for these plastic cutlery. There has been no changes from NAFTA. So they actually have the exact same wording of the rules. And so it's beholden upon either the importer to make sure that their exporter understands that they've taken a look at the rules of origin for the products. And not only have they given you a new certification, they've actually checked out to make sure the rules have not changed. So on the certification country of origin, so the only possible rules of origin or country of origin that can be accepted by customs authorities are either Canada, CA, United States, US, Mexico, MX. So these are the only possible categories. One big change is no longer do they have a must category. So must, it wasn't used a lot, but it was really on when a good was partially developed in either Mexico or the United States, and then they partially qualified in both countries, and then they were shipped to either Canada or back into Mexico. So this is no longer. So the big change is that the country where the last substantial transformation took place is the country where the goods are deemed to qualify, and that would be the country of origin. So if goods from Mexico were partially assembled, shipped to the United States for further assembly, and then completed and shipped to Canada, these goods would be deemed to be US goods under the country of origin. So certification, if you are continuing to want to do a blanket period, I would suggest that you fill this out from July 1st, 2020 until December 31st, 2020. And this is just, and from then on, I would go from January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2021. You are legally allowed to complete it from July 1st, 2020 till June 30th, 2021. But for everybody's simplification, I'm hoping that the trade takes this and we just get through the balance of the year, and then it'll become on an annual period. And certainly people that want to use any kind of certification and an attached spreadsheet, customs will still accept this as long as it's noted on the either certification form or the certification that you're making reference to an attachment such as a spreadsheet. In box 9, just like under NAFTA, the authorized signature, the certifier, and the date, and the certifying statement needs to be on the certification. And there's just a sample of the agreement that we worked through. On the back, you'll see some basic origin instructions. The instructions are slightly changed, so they fall in line with the new agreement. So here's some reference tools and sites. These are for people that want to dig deeper into the agreement, and certainly I would use these if you've got any compliance manuals within your organization, so that customs, be it the US Customs or Canada Customs, knows that you actually have sites that you've looked at and looked at the rules of origin and how your goods either qualify for import or for export. So where do we start and what do we do now? So the big thing for importers right now is you need to contact your vendors and request a new certification statement from them. Certainly feel free to use our certification if you like. If you've got companies that have already got a certification process in place, that's fine, but they are required by July 1st, 2020, and you need to start working on it right now. You also have to make sure that your vendors understand if there's been any rules of origin that have changed in a problem. So, and if you need assistance or you'd like us to reach out to your vendors, certainly reach out to a Carson staff. Exporters. This is where you need to identify if any rules of origin have changed to affect your products. Big changes are automotive. Automotive has some major changes on content going from 62.5% up to 77% of the product must be North American. So there'll be a lot of work on the auto side that has to be done. Also, you need your certifications ready for July 1st. There's other sectors like agriculture. There's some textiles that need to be looked at. TPL is not affected, but it's a whole different realm. So I'm a couple minutes short of wrapping up. So I'm just going to say that if you've got specific questions, you're going to receive a questionnaire. You can certainly fill it out, submit it. We'll reply as soon as possible. We will be following up with a FAQ to all the attendees and even people that could not attend on frequently asked questions to general questions. If they're specific in nature to your product, we'll reply directly to you. Certainly reach out to us if you've got any other issues. And I think the big takeaway is do not fear the change and that there is no transition. It starts on July 1st. I think the big takeaway is that with a little bit of homework and the work you've done and understand under NAFTA, in most cases, there has not been a lot of changes. And it's just a matter of getting your ducks in a row and we'll forge ahead and it'll become almost business as usual. So I'm going to turn it back to Tyler to wrap things up, and I wish you all the best under the new agreement.
Dave, thank you so much. Wonderful presentation. Not only did you educate us, but you kept it under 30 minutes. So I hope that was time well spent for everybody. I just want to reiterate again, if you have any questions about this and if Carson can assist in any way, please feel free to reach out. We're here to help you. I know that deadline seems like it's coming up very, very quickly. That's what we're here to do. Help you assist that, work with your vendors, ensure that your trade agreement documents are in place. So please feel free to reach out for that. And again, that Q&A form, please take your time, ask those questions. We're going to answer them in detail and then resend them out to all parties and post that on our website as well. And again, you're all going to get a recording of this today. So please send that out to whoever you would like, your own team, internal training. Feel free to do so. And finally, just thanks for your time. I think we've all been through a lot these past few months. So on behalf of the entire Carson team, please stay safe, stay healthy, and let's all get back to work. So have a great day. Take care.